Welcome to the City of Rockville election debate sponsored by the Rockville Chamber of Commerce. The Rockville Chamber of Commerce is the nonpartisan voice of the business community. We are committed to good government, economic vitality, and a high quality of life for all. Tonight's debate is for educational purposes. The Chamber does not endorse candidates. I'm Bruce Romer, Chamber Board Member and your moderator for tonight's program. We're pleased to welcome 6 Rockville citizens who are vying for the 4 seats on the City Council. They are Julie Palakovich Carr, Beryl Feinberg, Don Hadley, Tom Moore, Virginia Onley, and Claire Whitaker. Let's welcome them with a one-time round of applause. We applaud all the candidates for their interest in public service and their willingness to serve our community in these important leadership positions. We will begin the council candidates debate with opening statements of no more than 2 minutes. The order was determined earlier by a random drawing. Following the opening statements, I will pose a question to each candidate who will have 1 minute to answer. Other candidates who wish to respond will have 30 seconds to do so. We will then direct another question to the next candidate in the same order as the opening statements. Again, a 30-second response from the other candidates who wish to respond. We will conclude the debate with 1-minute closing statements from the candidates in the same order as the opening statements. Now for the opening statements. Claire Whitaker, you're first.
I'm happy to be before the Chamber. It gives me a great opportunity to talk about my family. My father was a small businessman. He came to Italy and he started a mason contracting business, and he did pretty well, but he worked from 6:30 in the morning until 7 or 8 at night. My husband was a lawyer, and what is more appropriately a small business. He was in a small law firm, and then he went out on his own until he died. And my daughter, she's trying to start a business here in Rockville, and she works as long as both my husband and my deceased husband and my father. I was one of the lucky ones. I had a regular full-time job until recently when the furlough went into play. I was always considered essential, but for some reasons civil assistant United States attorneys were not essential this time. So I've had a period of a furlough, and I think I've been working harder recently during this last 2 weeks than probably the last month, because every day, all the time, we're working on this campaign and trying to get the message out. When I retire, I may very well put out a shingle here in Rockville and join Gloria and Poole and Ruth Hennessian and some of the other people I see in the audience, and wonder where my next paycheck's going to come from. So I support small businesses and local business 100%. In fact, I think more local businesses should be here in Town Center and Twinbrook during what I would like to propose is a situation where we have MPBUs instead of MPDUs. I mean, we can have the DUs, but MPBUs, moderate
We've really
priced.
run out of time for the opening statement. Sorry. Next is Beryl Feinberg.
Thank you, Bruce. Good evening. I am Beryl Feinberg, candidate for City Council. Thank you to the Rockville Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this forum. I'm here tonight to present my credentials as a leader and policymaker in local government. I have more than 20 years of experience with public budgeting, finance, and policy formation, including 14 years in the county's Office of Management and Budget, and my current position as the Deputy Director of the Department of General Services. I am a Leadership Montgomery graduate, the Board Chair of Montgomery Hospice, and I earned an MBA from the University of Maryland. Simply stated, I get things done. For more than 2 decades, I have worked to make our county a better place to live, work, and play, and now I want to share that expertise with my hometown, Rockville. As the daughter of a small businessman, I saw firsthand that regardless of the economic times, my dad had to meet payroll. I too have worked in private industry and understand the pressures of small businesses. Rockville is at a crossroads. We want to preserve our residential heritage, sustain city services despite inevitable increasing costs, and keep the lowest possible residential property tax rates. We must carefully monitor and proactively manage growth. Professional colleagues and friends alike describe me as a result-oriented leader, analytical, a budget geek, and compassionate about services to those in need. I have worked with elected, appointed, and merit county officials and am able to work with everyone. I hope this evening you will see these traits. Thank you.
Don Hadley.
Thank you. My name is Don Hadley. I'm an independent candidate for City Council. I thank the Chamber for having us here this evening and for those of you who are in attendance. I decided to run in this election because I had concern that an unopposed slate of 5 people could not adequately represent the independence of thought that we need at the council level, let alone representing the divergent interests that we have here in the city. I've practiced law in the city and in the county for 43 years. My office is on West Jefferson Street here. I represent businesses. To borrow a phrase from the medical community, I'm their primary care lawyer. And by doing that, I represent them in all of their business transactions and their personnel matters, both internal and external. I also represent their owners and affiliates in estate planning and other matters. The types of clients are merchants, large business, small businesses, realtors, developers, and a number of others. I know their pain in dealing with regulation, in dealing with county and with municipal issues. I also have a land use background. Presently, I'm the chairman of the Rockville Planning Commission, which considers annexations, subdivisions, site plans, and for quite a while now, the Rockville Pike Plan, which we're working on. Whether or not those of you who are business owners are residents of the city, I feel that your presence is extremely important in our community for deciding our future policies. My goals tonight are to learn your issues and the concerns and the questions that you may have and to learn from them, and also to provide responses to you that will give you a full and fair picture of where I stand on the issues. I'm for growth of Rockville through development that is moderated in its intensity, cost, and effect, and that creates great neighborhoods for residents and businesses alike. I favor neither killing off development nor killing off the adequate public facilities ordinance. I seek a harmonious conclusion that serves the major interests of both points of view.
Don, I'm sorry, but we've used up
and I've just concluded.
all the time. Virginia Onley.
My name is Virginia Onley, and I've been in Rockville for 20 years. I came here 20 years ago to just stay a couple of years and fell in love with the community. I live at the Americana, where I serve on their board of directors. I've been on 9 boards and task force, most recently the 2012 Charter Review Commission. I'm a retired IBM employee, worked there for 35 years, and I now work at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center at the Navy Exchange. I'm a member of the Rockville Housing Enterprise Board, where we purchased 236 homes for affordable, moderate to low-income families. And that is my most proudest moment, because there were 236 families that we saved. It was going to be purchased by a developer, but we felt that the developer wouldn't come to the table and that these people would have been displaced, and that would have been a shame in Rockville. My commitment is to reach into the communities to hear what people have to say and work with you to build a stronger community. Neighborhoods, businesses, and all stakeholders, working with the county, working with the state, working with Montgomery County Public Schools. I have a heart to see problems solved, and I have the ability to gain consensus when multiple personalities are involved. As your council member, I will constantly fight for you, for all communities, and making sure that you are heard at City Hall. I'm also fortunate enough to have been endorsed by Mayor Rose Kresnow. Thank you.
Julie Palakovich Carr.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for organizing tonight's event. I think that we can all agree that Rockville is a very special place. That's why my husband and I chose to make it our home. We've put down roots in the community and look forward to raising children here. I'm running for City Council to help ensure that Rockville remains a great place to live, work, and to raise a family. I will bring a balanced and sustainable approach to city government and work to address the needs of residents, businesses, and other stakeholders. I've spent much of my time in Rockville working to improve our city. I served as chair of the task force that reviewed a key city policy regarding new development, also known as the APFO, where I pushed for a balanced approach for growth. As a council member, I will work to preserve the character of our neighborhoods while allowing Rockville to continue to thrive economically. I will support thoughtful redevelopment that is in the best interest of the community and does not unduly impact the adequacy of services for existing residents. As vice chair of the City Services and Budget Working Group, I help plan for the city's long-term fiscal health. If elected, I will support high-quality services, deal with the backlog of infrastructure projects, and maintain a balanced budget. I will ensure that the city continues to improve program efficiency and effectiveness, such as improving the permitting process. I'm serving my second term on the city's Environment Commission, where I advocated for the city to adopt a tax credit for commercial property owners who renovate their buildings to be more energy efficient. I will continue to build Rockville's reputation as an environmental leader by pursuing actions that are good for the environment and for taxpayers' wallets. I'd be honored to serve as a member of the next City Council. Thank you.
Tom Moore.
Hello. Thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you to the Rockville Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this event. Thank you, Bruce, for moderating so well. I am Councilmember Tom Moore. I'm finishing up my first term on the Rockville City Council. When I ran in 2011, I promised thoughtful and fact-based leadership, and I've lived up to that promise. Specifically, here's what I've done to earn your vote and the support of the business community for another term. I led on responsible budgeting. I was instrumental in crafting 2 budgets that kept city services strong and property tax rates steady. I led the way in preserving and protecting our affordable neighborhoods. Virginia and I share a lot of pride on this one. When the 236 families of Fireside Park were threatened by private developers, I championed the effort to direct RHE to buy the units and keep them affordable. This brought absolutely no change to that neighborhood or the neighborhoods around it. It simply protected the families that were already there. I stood up for strong public ethics laws. When others on the councils sought to reduce how much we elected officials have to disclose about our own finances, I worked successfully at the city and state levels to keep our laws strong. I led the way in protecting your privacy. I put a spotlight on how long the government should keep data on people who aren't suspected of doing anything wrong. I led the mayor and council to sharply limit the government's retention of that data. I was unafraid to touch Rockville's political third rail, the APFO. My style is not to ignore problems and let somebody else take care of them later. Councilmember John Hall and I took a hard look at the APF standards and decided they needed changes. The city had been sued repeatedly, and because some of the standards are poorly written. And the development that we're getting in Town Center 2 just isn't what we want. We decided to dive in and propose fixes to the law. We held a public hearing, we heard quite a bit, and we listened. As a result, the mayor and council is moving forward with a broad package of changes. We will refer the most controversial sections to the Planning Commission with specific assignments and a firm deadline. Again, thank you, and I'm looking forward to this debate tonight.
The first question is for Claire Whitaker. What strategies will need to be adopted during your 2-year term in office to assure the city's long-term financial stability and to maintain the city's high level of government services?
I think that one of the things that Councilwoman Bridget Newton put into initiated was the board, the financial board, which I think will review the financial review board, which will study the budget. But my particular interests are that we should start using our staff and using contractors less. Take a situation where we only contract out on absolute necessary items, that we try to pay down our debt, that if we refinance to have a lower debt, that's fine, but we shouldn't carry more than as much as we are, which is a $5 million debt service. I'd like to see, I guess I finished.
The 1 minute time is up. With responses are 30 seconds, and we're going to go down the line, starting with the next person in line, Julie Palakovich Carr.
So I think there's a number of actions that the city can take to ensure its long-term fiscal health. One of them is raising revenues. The commercial sector is an important part of that, and we need to be pursuing thoughtful redevelopment around Town Center and along Rockville Pike so that we can bring in more property taxes from redevelopment projects. I think the city should also be looking more proactively at potential properties to annex into the city. When I served on the budget working group of the Rockville Summit, that was a recommendation that came out of the task force that Beryl and I served on together. Another key step is going to be really taking and I'm out, sorry.
Beryl Feinberg.
Thank you very much. There are several things I would look at. I would look at not just at how the budget is for 1 year out, but I'd want to look at 5 and 6 years out. For the long-term financial health, I'd want to make sure that for any capital improvement projects that are programmed, we look at what's called the operating budget impacts that would affect the operating budget, such as staffing, utilities, maintenance. I would also like to look at the pension funding and see how that is projected. I would like to look at the total compensation packages for our Rockville City employees to see what is sustainable.
Don Hadley.
Not enough time here. I would say 2 things. Number one, the long-range picture requires that we seriously begin to address our accumulated future debts and obligations, including the pension plan deficit and our construction of roads and bridges or repairs of those. I think we can probably achieve quite a bit of efficiency through a review in government of how much paper we use. All the little things add up, and I think we can also pull in our horns on, my time is up, you'll never know.
Tom Moore.
I think what the city mostly has to do is to continue to be careful. One of the ways that you can measure how well the city manages its finances now is our AAA bond rating. The bond rating agencies might actually rate our bonds higher than the federal government if things keep up downtown. Something we have to do also is bring in business. The more business we have in Rockville, the lower everybody's property tax rates are. Business brings in revenue for the city and does not cost a lot in services. So business development is something that's very important for the long-term city's finances. Something we need to do is,
Virginia Onley.
Well, we need to really concentrate on businesses that expand our tax base and are not passed down to the residents of Rockville. It's not going to be easy, especially in this hard economic times, but we need to be careful. We need to look at every avenue of that budget and make sure that we are looking at the retirement plan, we're looking at our workers, our employees, making sure that we address any attrition that needs to be addressed for the city. Thank you.
Next question goes to Beryl Feinberg. What changes, if any, would you support to the city's adequate public facilities ordinance?
Thank you very much. When I look at the APFO, I look at it and I say, what are those things that we can control within our borders and what can we not? Specifically, such as the schools funding, that is an issue that is really with state funding for capital improvements program, as well as what the county executive and the county council ultimately approves. I would like to align the city's APFO closer to the counties. I would want to change the unintended consequences that have occurred by having a delay in some of the construction in the RM elementary school number 5. I do believe that there should be some changes and make them closer aligned to the county's APFO. I do believe we need to have it. However, I would also encourage that we do need to take into consideration traffic congestion, public safety, and planning for the future so that we can preserve our neighborhoods as something that we all treasure. Thank you.
Responses up to 30 seconds. Don Hadley.
Since Rockville doesn't champion the same level of development that Montgomery County does, I do not champion changing our APFO to match the county standard. I think instead we need to get funding and to work on that a lot harder. If there are to be changes, they have to be fair. We have a town center, we have Twinbrook, we have other areas that are vying. We have a new school coming in. There may be a little room, but I would not change the basic structure.
Tom Moore.
I'm disappointed that we didn't make any changes to protect and improve what's going on in Town Center 2. The mayor and council are going to send a charge off to the planning commission and with some fairly pointed questions saying, balance all of our goals and not just school capacity, but downtown development, make sure that all of the city's goals are being served.
Virginia Onley.
Our APFO is our working tool. It's not a document that you can put together and then just put it to bed and come back 5-10 years later. It really needs to be tweaked. We need to make sure that we're on target, especially when it comes to our children and their schools. And I think the city doing a better plan of just making sure that the APFO as our working tool is the answer. Thank you.
Claire Whitaker.
Yes, I wouldn't make any changes to the APFO or the APFO standards until the school capacity problem has been resolved. I don't think that trailers are acceptable at all. I don't think 120 students, 120% over is an acceptable standard. I would keep it where it is now, and I don't think 9 miles an hour is an appropriate average speed on Rockville Pike. So,
Julie Palakovich Carr.
Well, having spent 10 months delving into the APFO and the standards that implement the law as the chair of the APFO Review Committee, I do believe that the city needs a safeguard like the APFO against excessive development, but that some changes do need to be made to improve the standards that implement the law. Let me just focus on one, given the short time here, which has to do with the traffic standard. I think in areas like Rockville Pike, where we can expect new development that's going to be clustered together, it makes sense to take a more holistic view of a certain section of the pike or the whole southern part of the pike instead of our current building by building evaluation.
Next question's for Don Hadley. It's ever more apparent that legislative bodies need to work together collaboratively to solve local, state, and national challenges. If elected, what will be your approach to working with the mayor and other council members, as well as Montgomery County and the city of Gaithersburg, in addressing the city's needs?
Well, first of all, I think that all agendas at our mayor and council level need to be in the open meetings and open to the public. I would not favor commissioners working behind the scenes to bring proposals that give the public a short term to consider them. Secondly, there's a matter of respect, and you'll see on the Planning Commission, if you watch our deliberations, you have 7 people who have 7 different ideas. We reach conclusion, we vote, and we all walk out with esteem for each other, and that's what we need. We need esteem and respect. Same thing with the county. The county has its own financial problems getting money from the state. I think we need to integrate more with more frequent conversation, more personal conversation. I am a collaborator. I would be reaching out to all those folks very frequently to get the ideas at a personal level and pursued at a public level.
Thank you. Tom Moore.
Well, I'm confident that there will be a new tone on the next council. What I'll do is I'll continue to do what I've done this term. I testified before the county council on school issues. I testified before the school board on school issues. One thing that we've been working on very hard in the last couple of years is to keep lines of communication open between the city and the county and other boards that we have to deal with. We have good relationships with our state delegation. We should continue to maintain that no matter who's elected next time.
Virginia Onley.
Well, I think I want to keep on the path that the current mayor and council are on. We need to make sure that we keep the communication lines open between the county, between the state, between Gaithersburg and all of our surrounding jurisdictions. It's very important that we bring all stakeholders to the table so that we're not cut short, so that we keep thriving and doing what's best for the city of Rockville and the Rockville residents.
Claire Whitaker.
I would agree with everyone. I would add that I would want to have regular meetings with the people in Gaithersburg and in the county council. It seems that we already have a lot of support in the state through the state delegation, so that's a plus. And I think our highest priority is to get more schools, get that under control.
Julie Palakovich Carr.
Well, I think one of our priorities needs to be building a better relationship with the members of the county council and the county executive. As was mentioned during the mayoral debate, this is really about putting in the time and the effort by the members of the mayor and council to build those relationships. There's going to be a number of issues coming before the next mayor and council that will certainly be dependent on the county, like bus rapid transit. So we need to be working with the county, collaborating with them so that we all are aware of each other's needs and desires for these policy issues.
Beryl Feinberg.
Here's an area where I already have these relationships. They are long-standing, they are deep, they are across county government. I have worked with different county executives, I have worked with county council members over the last 20 years. Those relationships are already established for me, so I would like to continue them when I am elected. I would be open, I would be candid, I would work with everyone just as I have before, working with elected and merit officials. I would encourage routine meetings between the city and the county, working more with our District 17 delegation.
The next question is for Virginia Onley. Do you consider it important that the city of Rockville be perceived as being business friendly? If it is important, how would you improve that image? If it's not, why not?
Well, I think it's very important that the city be considered business friendly, because when you think of businesses in Rockville or businesses in any jurisdiction, that's the backbone and the heartbeat of how a community will be successful. We can't shut businesses out. We have to bring businesses in that our citizens want, that are good for our families, and that bring in a good tax base for the citizens. So it's very important to me to have a good relationship with each business in Rockville and to make sure that we continue to foster that for the benefit of our community.
Whitaker.
Yes, businesses are so important to this community and across the nation that I think we should be a leader in this area. And one of the things I was hoping to say during my opening, but I ran out of time, was that we should pursue a moderate-priced business unit in developments, just like developments have to have a moderate-priced dwelling unit. 15% of every new development, or 12% depending on the situation, is necessary. I think we ought to do that with businesses too.
Thank you. Julie Palakovich, Carr.
I think that it is important that Rockville be perceived as business friendly, and not just perceived as it, but actually working to be business friendly. I don't think that's currently the perception, and there's some improvements that the city could make. I'll highlight one here, which is streamlining our permitting process. I think we could make it a lot easier for local and small businesses to get permits, perhaps by moving to an online permitting system.
Beryl Feinberg.
Thank you. Yes, I believe we can be more business friendly, and there are several things that I would do. I think we can work more closely with the county's Department of Economic Development, with the state Department of Business and Economic Development. I would like to see us reach out to the Hispanic and Asian business leaders and work with them to encourage more of our diverse population investing in business in the city. And I would also like to encourage more local small business. We need to not only look to grow our businesses, but to retain our businesses.
Don Hadley.
I would focus on the small business, the local business side of it. I feel like both in tone and in leadership, the mayor and the council can do a lot more to frequent and pursue those for other people, and visibly so. If we are an active business community, we will attract other business. So I think we need to create the space for local businesses. Town Center too needs to have local businesses in it big time. I think we're really hurting on, and we have great businesses in Town Center, but I don't think we have nearly enough of them to create a viable mass to be a real draw.
Tom Moore.
Well, I can tell you one thing that I did do this term. One thing I heard from businesses as I was visiting them during Reddy's Business Appreciation Week is that they said we can win contracts all over the world and we can't win any in Rockville. And that's a concern that I've heard in a lot of different places. And one thing that I did was ask the city staff to come back with ways that the city could provide appropriate advantages to city businesses when we're giving out contracts. We managed to make some modest changes on that. I will continue that kind of leadership.
Next question is for Julie Palakovich, Carr. On the November 5th ballot, there are 3 questions about the city's governmental structure. The referendum questions are advisory. However, if any of them receive a majority favorable vote, will you vote to change the city's charter accordingly?
Well, certainly what Rockville voters are interested in terms of these 3 charter questions is going to be an important data point as the next mayor and council make a decision in terms of what to do in terms of number of council members and term length and timing of the elections. But I don't think that it's the only data point. There's some key logistical questions that will need to be addressed, particularly in terms of the timing of the elections. If we move to presidential year elections, some of the current, let's call them amenities that the city offers, like curbside voting for the disabled or same-day registration, that's not available if we would move to the county or state election system. So I haven't yet heard an answer in terms of how would we deal with those sorts of things, and I need to know that information before I would make a decision about whether or not it's going to work out for the city and be in the best interest of the voters.
Beryl Feinberg.
Thank you. Given that in the last election there were only 17% who came out to vote, and assuming that's approximately the same this year, I would look to say that I believe that regardless of what that would be one point of listening to our voters, but we need to go beyond that. We would need to have town meetings, public hearings. I would want to meet with citizens and homeowners associations to hear what some of those groups feel, who even if they haven't come out to vote, and meet with all the stakeholders to understand how they would view the 3 charter questions before I would make a decision.
Don Hadley.
Well, we know the referendum would be advisory and not a compulsory answer. I served on the Charter Review Commission, so I can support all 3 of the provisions if I have to. But the one that I would be a little reluctant about would be moving to the presidential year elections. I feel that for a number of reasons, keeping our elections within Rockville makes a lot of sense. If we have to increase our voter participation, we should get busy and do that and not try to piggyback presidential elections to get the leverage for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Moore.
That's not our system. We convened a Charter Review Commission, and I wrote the questions to actually go on the ballot to ask citizens about them. But the mayor and council are charged with that decision. The mayor and council are responsible for that decision. The advisory questions, the input we get on that is certainly important input, but it's not determinative.
Virginia Onley.
I served on the Charter Review Commission, and these are advisory questions. As people have learned about the questions on the ballot, one of the things that concerns people is the 4-year term. I fully support that because I think it will get more people out. It'll give the candidates a break. I also think that if we go to 4-year, we can still make it the odd year. But I'd want to hear what more neighborhoods had to say about these questions.
Claire Whitaker.
Well, I believe that I'm representing the citizens, and the citizens have an opportunity to express themselves through a vote. So I would support the results of the referendum 100%.
The next question is for Tom Moore. What follow-up strategies would you advocate regarding the recent Rockville summit?
Basically keep that process going. There's a conversation that was started in all different sectors of this city, and we've had 2 of these summits. One was put together by Councilmember John Britton, and the most recent one really led by Councilmember Marcuccio. That has been incredibly useful conversations. One thing that came out of this one that it would be worth following up on is every single working group that looked at our adequate public facilities ordinance recommended that we move closer to the county standards. To me, that was a surprising result. I was surprised to hear the unanimity on that. I think there are that recommendation and a number of recommendations that we can take and move forward with.
Virginia Onley.
We need to keep the conversation going. These, summits are very nice, and they give us a lot of input. But one of the things that we seem to stall out on is reaching out into neighborhoods, and it's not easy. Everybody's busy. But I feel that as a council member, I will continue to go out in the neighborhoods so that we get the input from our residents, because I think that we have a lot of talent out here and that we could use their suggestion and their support.
Julie Palakovich, Carr.
I think there were a number of great recommendations that came out of the Rockville Summit working groups, but some of them are still pretty high order, and it might be appropriate to have some more breakout groups that actually work on coming up with implementation plans to come up with the specifics for some of those recommendations.
Beryl Feinberg.
Yes, there are several things from the Rockville Summit that I would like to see us continue pursuing. One would be looking at our current tax structures, our fees, and our regulatory policies. I would like to look at the permitting process and see where they are siloed, identify those silos, and try to streamline them. I would also like to look at the incentives that are both in Rockville and Gaithersburg and the county. How do we fare in terms of Rockville and attracting and retaining businesses? I would also, one of the others is attracting more young people to come move into the city so that they would live, work, and play and raise families here.
Don Hadley.
The summit provides a relatively high level of policy review and integration of high-minded citizens to participate in those conversations. There is lacking, however, a common man element of it, and I would very much favor exploring a parallel action to re-engage our neighborhoods, to re-engage many of our communities, many of them ethnic, who have no participation in the summit or a high-level discussion because they're looking at life at a much lower level. I think we need to reach those people while we're maintaining further policy development. Thank you.
We're out of time for our questions. Now we're going to hear closing statements from our candidates. Claire Whitaker, you have 1 minute.
My position is that the most important thing for the city right now is the adequate public facilities ordinance, that it be kept from groups that intend to want to waive it. And I'm afraid that the slate is the first thing that will be done if the slate comes into office will be to waive it, and that's why I hope that you will look at the independence of other people who, myself and Mr. Hadley, would like to make sure that schools are not overcrowded any more than they are, and traffic is not at a standstill. That's the first thing. Borrowing and spending, I think, has to also stop. I mean, we can't just borrow. The interest rates are going to go up, and if we keep borrowing, we're going to have serious issues in the long run. I think citizens come first. I think we need to listen to our citizens, go out to the neighborhoods, be responsive. If it means letting them call us by our first names, and that's fine. I think that's just fine. We're part of them. We're one of them, and I'm 100% supportive of the citizens.
Beryl Feinberg, you're next.
I hope this evening's forum enabled you to open a window on my background in policy formation and budget. As a results-oriented leader, I pledge to engage in fact-based debate, listen to all stakeholders, and seek to find common ground to problems. Residents, civic associations, businesses, and nonprofits each play a critical role in our vibrant city, and their unique perspectives must be heard and shared with each other. I will advocate tirelessly for Rockville. I was appointed to the Rockville Finance and Budget Task Force and on the Rockville Summit, and served 7 years on the city's Board of Supervisors of Elections. As a member of Team Rockville, I promise to be transparent and civil in my interactions with all elected officials, respect the city manager form of government, demonstrate respect for city staff, but I, as well as my team members, are not monolithic. We clearly have some differing views. Read more about me on www.berylfeinberg.com. I ask for your support on November 5th, and I've already begun to identify in the first 60 days how I would address the learning curve. Thank you.
Don Hadley.
We lack vision both for Town Center 2 and for development throughout our town and city, and because of that, we tend to take single issues like Phase 2 of Town Center or Twin Brook or what's going to happen on the Pike and deal with those in isolation. We need to deal with them all together. I think the issue of the APFO also is too much of a single issue. We're not going to waive the APFO. You saw how people turned out at the Mayor and Council meeting 2 weeks ago. We're playing with fire trying to deal with these individual items. I think if we integrate them, we can come up with better answers, and we have to include all of the citizens of the city in that debate, not just leaders, not just people who have dogma or single issues that they're pursuing. I want to represent all of the people. Thank you.
Virginia Onley.
For the last 20 years, I've served on boards and commissions. The senior commission, when they launched the computer lab, I fought for that. The latest was Rockville Housing Enterprising Board to purchase Fireside Park apartments. I fought for that. These were issues and purchases, and they were not very popular, but they were for the best for the city. And my passion is to serve Rockville and serve Rockville well. No one has ever said it was Onley's way or the highway. I've always represented the group that I was assigned to represent, and always, a lot of times it was not what I wanted, it was what was best for the community. To learn more about me, visit my website, votevirginiaonley.org. And thank you so much for listening this evening.
Julie Palakovich Carr, sorry.
I've spent the past 6 months talking to residents and other people from all across Rockville. While knocking on more than 4,000 doors, I've heard time and again that Rockville is a great place to live, work, and raise a family. The close-knit neighborhoods, top-notch schools, ample jobs, parks and green spaces, great public transportation, and excellent restaurants and shops are among the things people value most about Rockville. In spite of the many assets in our community, people have concerns about traffic congestion, pedestrian safety, property taxes, and the environment. If elected, I will be your advocate on these issues and others. I will work with the mayor and other members of the council to represent the needs of all of Rockville as we make key decisions about the future of our community. My professional experience at a nonprofit, on Capitol Hill, and on numerous citizen advisory bodies has prepared me to lead the city and to carefully weigh the long-term consequences of council actions. The decisions we make today affect not just the community we live in, but the community our children will inherit. Thank you.
Tom Moore.
One of the most important issues the next mayor and council is going to address is the charter amendments that we propose this term. I believe that one of them, moving our elections to the presidential year, would dramatically increase voter turnout in Rockville. Nothing else compares. This move was strongly endorsed by the leaders on our Charter Review Commission, and I ask you to support that as well. Some real changes coming to Rockville, and it's not just around Metro Center or around Metro or in Town Center. At least 3 members of the mayor and council are going to be brand new to the body next time, a governing majority. This makes your close attention to these elections especially important. I have the judgment and the experience to continue to lead on our charter questions, on the Pike Plan, on our upcoming budgets, and anything else that comes our way. I ask you for your continued support and your vote on November 5th. I also ask you to support my fellow Team Rockville members, Marcuccio for mayor, and Beryl Feinberg, Virginia Onley, and Julie Palakovich Carr for council. They are dedicated public servants and are each very well suited to lead the city, even though they don't agree with me all the time. Thanks so much. Good night.
On behalf of the Rockville Chamber of Commerce, I want to thank all of you for your thoughtful comments. Let's have a round of applause.
Well done.
And thank you very much to our audience, our viewers. Please remember to vote on November 5th. Good evening.